quest continues. The circle closes. The saga lives on. Return of the Jedi.
Hello everybody, I'm Rowan Thompson.
And I'm Cameron Simpson.
And welcome back to my channel in 80s May of 2024. And since we're doing this on May 4th, of course, since I talked about A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back, we have now reached the finale of the original Star Wars trilogy, Return of the Jedi. So, I mean, if you paid attention to what I've been doing on my channel for the past couple of years, every May 4th I talk about each entry into the Star Wars franchise. So, now that we've reached the finale of the original trilogy, this is definitely going to be a whole lot of fun. This was an important part of my childhood because I recall Return of the Jedi being the first of the original Star Wars trilogy that I watched as a kid. It was kind of a weird order how I watched it. As far as I can recall, it was Return of the Jedi, A New Hope, and Empire Strikes Back. So, definitely a jumbled order the way I watched the original trilogy. And for a long time as a kid, this was my personal favorite of the trilogy. But as I got older, I began to favor Empire Strikes Back a little bit more because I felt like the pacing is a little better and it has like a good 3-act structure. But when it comes to Return of the Jedi, it succeeds in being a satisfying conclusion to the original trilogy. You have like all the principal characters back. You have Mark Hamill as Luke being the hero that we know and love. And of course, there's the love story between Han and Leia. And of course, the big battle between Luke and Darth Vader, which is iconic even after all these years. Mm-hmm. And of course, there's Ian McDiarmid as the Emperor, who is just as terrifying as he is after all these years, whether if it's in the original trilogy, the prequels, or hell, even in The Rise of Skywalker. So he did have his moments here and there in that film, and I mean, he was definitely one of the highlights of the prequels. Yeah. But when it comes to his role in Return of the Jedi, however, he is a creepy motherfucker for sure. I wanted to bring you in on this because you often said numerous times, to me anyway, that Return of the Jedi has always been your favorite of the original Star Wars trilogy. Did you have like a lot of fond memories watching it when you were a kid?
Well, to be honest, while I do consider Return of the Jedi to be my personal favorite of the original trilogy, my memories of it as a kid are like vague, to be honest, because I think I mostly grew up with the ending to the prequel trilogy, that being like mainly episode 2 and 3, and then I later got into episode 1, but when I did come to know Star Wars as a whole as I got older, to me, in the original trilogy anyway, Return of the Jedi was indeed my favorite of the mix. Luke is pretty much a full-on Jedi Knight, and he's like has pretty much completed his training, mastered his powers, he's pretty much ready to go.
And as usual, we start off with the opening crawl and hearing John Williams' beautiful music, because what else can we say about John Williams that hasn't already been said at this point? It's fucking John Williams. Of course his work is going to be amazing.
Yeah, I honestly, I don't really, have a favorite composer when it comes to movies, to be honest, although I will admit Danny Elfman, I think, really does make a good case. But I do think that John Williams really, I think, does an awesome job every time he's behind the wheel.
Yeah, because he has given us so much great music over the course of his career, from Star Wars to Jaws to Jurassic Park and E.T. and Superman, Harry Potter, and just without his music in those movies, and even Indiana Jones, those movies just would not be the same.
Yeah. Who knows what they would have been like if he wasn't around. I mean, it's really iconic, a lot of the stuff that he's managed to make over the years. It's just unbelievable, really.
That'd be one hell of a resume.
Yeah.
And we learned that the Empire is in the process of making a new Death Star, and there is a good and bad thing about this, in my personal opinion, because the Rebels have managed to blow up the first Death Star from the first movie, and you're like, and me as an audience member, I'm like, you sure you want to go through this shit again? Even though you're kind of risking the rebels probably finding a weakness and blowing that up again. But uh, critics had complained even back then that it kind of recycles elements from A New Hope, and there is a good and bad thing about that. Although I will admit I do like the design of the second Death Star.
But there are some key differences between this one and the other one, and that, to me, changes the very nature of the problem. Because, for starters, one thing to remember is that, unlike the other Death Star, this one was not fully completed. It was operational at the end, but it was not fully completed, so it still had some weak spots, was kind of under maintenance, and sort of like half-baked, so to speak.
Yeah.
But that's also why they pretty much did what they decided to do and took such precautionary measures in trying to keep it protected, but also show it as a show of strength, so to speak.
Yeah. And of course, Darth Vader gets a great entrance, and he informs this very frightened officer that the Emperor is coming to oversee construction of this new Death Star. And the way, I mean, just by the look of that officer's face alone, he looks like he's about to piss his pants after hearing that the Emperor is coming to oversee the construction of the Death Star. And the way he's like, we shall double our efforts. And it's kind of really difficult to say that line as fast as he says it because he's obviously terrified. The line that Vader says is to that officer, I hope so, Commander, for your sake. The Emperor is not as forgiving as I am. And it's just like, the Emperor is capable of some shit.
Yeah, big time. Next thing we end up with is R2 and C-3PO on Tatooine going to Jabba's palace to personally deliver to him a message given to them by Luke Skywalker.
We find out that Han is still frozen in carbonite after Empire. I gotta admit, even after all these years, I'm still impressed with the look of the creatures in these movies. Because the use of makeup and puppet work and practical effects, I'm just like, no CG, just full on art here. This is filmmaking at its finest. And Jabba was not in episode 4, no matter how much George Lucas wants to put that in there, because in the special edition, it kind of like removes the mystery of what Jabba looks like. Or, I mean, we heard like whispers about him, and we know that, I mean, this is quite a figure in the original trilogy, but having him show up for the first time in Return of the Jedi, I mean, I do like the look of Jabba. The second you see him, I mean, this is a slimy son of a bitch.
In Return of the Jedi, they make him out to be just this immoral monster that is incapable of reason or bargaining at all.
Yeah, because with that recording that he received from Luke, I mean, even offering C-3PO and R2 as his new servants, which I do predict that Luke kind of predicted that he wouldn't go for the deal.
In the next scene, we have Leia disguised as a bounty hunter offering up Chewbacca to Jabba for the bounty he apparently placed on him earlier of, I believe it was 20,000 credits?
25.
Right, 25,000 credits. But Leia wanted like more than that and held a thermal detonator grenade at Jabba, demanding 50,000 credits. And basically, after some, I guess you could say, negotiation tactics, Jabba came up with 35,000 credits, and 3PO suggested that the bounty hunter take it.
And she does. And I do like this little moment where Boba Fett just nodded in silence to Leia, kind of like some kind of bounty hunter respect. And even in this one scene, we see Lando in disguise as a bodyguard. Leia frees Han from the carbonite, and they get a little moment together, which is of course ruined by Jabba, and Han gets taken away, locked up with Chewie, and we see Leia as slave Leia, and a lot of people has talked about to death about how great the look of slave Leia is, and I would pretty much be preaching to the choir. I mean, I'm just like back then. I mean, she was hot. I'm not gonna deny it.
Yeah, I admit to that as well.
It kind of helped make Carrie Fisher a sex symbol in the early '80s.
Whether it was intentional or not, of course.
Yeah, and in regards to Carrie Fisher, rest in peace. So then Luke infiltrates the palace, and this is where we meet the badass that we all know and love. I mean, sure, he had his moments in A New Hope and Empire, but here he's a full-fledged badass, and he of course tries to bargain for Han, Chewie, and Leia, and of course Jabba is having none of that. So he sends him to the Rancor, and the look of this creature, I remember this pretty much scarring me as a kid. That, of course, Luke manages to defeat it, and because Jabba is so pissed about like the result of all of this, he wants Luke and Han to be fed to the sarlacc, so they would be slowly digested over 1,000 years. Which I can probably say is definitely a fate worse than death. And the entire Sarlacc sequence is just great, and you gotta love the nod moment.
Yeah, that is just like, if you understand what that means, a lot of times it's like a moment of ready, set, and we're in.
Yeah, and R2 shoots out Luke's lightsaber, and it's green, and I love the look of it, and he's just slinging it, just slicing and dicing motherfuckers, and it's just like, God, this is so great. One thing that always bothered me as a kid, even though Disney fixed this later, is the fate of Boba Fett, because, in Empire, they set him up to be this badass character, and he just goes out like a bitch, basically.
Yeah,
That always pissed me off as a kid, but when they brought him back and both The Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett, I'm just like, thank you.
Honestly, you gotta give them credit for that much, because if it wasn't for their intervention on that part, getting the rights to Star Wars and bringing Boba Fett back, he'd still be in the belly of that Sarlacc pit, slowly digested over the course of 1,000 years.
Yeah. And we get a satisfying moment where Leia strangles Jabba, and I'm just like, well, you got what you deserve, you slimy bastard.
Amen to that.
Yeah. After they blow up the ship, the others decide to meet up with the rest of the Rebel Alliance while Luke goes back to Dagobah to complete his training with Yoda. But when we see Yoda in the next scene on Dagobah, we find out that Yoda is dying and that Luke needs no more training. But in order for him to be a full-fledged Jedi Knight, he has to confront Darth Vader again.
Yeah, it's that one moment in the movie that usually always makes you genuinely sad, because you got this awesome character. When he's finally at the end of his rope, you just can't help but feel for him.
Yeah, because he's lived for 900 years. And of course, that's the moment where Yoda admits that Darth Vader is Luke's father after Vader revealed Luke the truth in Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah, I actually found out as an interesting fact, in an episode of Big Bang Theory, James Earl Jones plays himself talking to Sheldon, and he said that even he, the voice of Darth Vader, when he first read the script for Empire Strikes Back and Darth Vader told Luke he was his father, James Earl Jones thought for sure he was lying.
Nope, he wasn't full of shit.
Yeah, how messed up is that?
Yeah, but not only does Yoda tell him that Darth Vader is indeed his father, but there is another Skywalker somewhere, and we find out from Obi-Wan that it's his twin sister, Leia. And looking back on Empire Strikes Back, you're like, did they kiss?
Well,
some part of me imagined that Luke might have just gargled some mouthwash for 10 minutes straight.
eh,
I would have paid good money to see that deleted scene. How do you feel about Ian McDermott as the Emperor?
well, to be honest, I just think he's the perfect choice. The fact that he's like meant to be this all-powerful Sith Lord, and yet, even after all these years, from every trilogy he's been in, prequel, sequel, and otherwise, even original, every one of his appearances to me just feels right.
Yeah, he's definitely been a highlight in the entire series because I mean his performance is just so damn captivating, really, because he brings so much to the character of Palpatine, and he was and like I mentioned earlier, he was definitely one of the highlights of the prequels, especially in Revenge of the Sith. The scenes that were given with the Emperor, and you're just like, this is definitely the head of the snake. This is the man who is behind all the evil in the galaxy. But we find out that the rebels need to go to Endor to deactivate the shield generator so the rebel fleet can destroy the Death Star. And I do like the look of Endor for the most part.
Yeah.
And when it comes to the Ewoks, might have liked them as a kid. As an adult, I don't really like them as much as I used to. I mean, not that the Ewoks are awful. Although originally they were, the original plan was for them to go to the Wookiee planet, which was Kashyyyk. I mean, they had that in Episode 3,
Yeah.
which I honestly think would have been a lot better. But yeah.
Although I think the main reason at the time they changed it might have been for two reasons. One was that George Lucas probably thought at the time, and maybe he was right, that he had a better idea in mind. And also, by the time we get to the prequel trilogy, everyone on Kashyyyk, the Wookiees that is, I think was pretty much exterminated in the Great War. So even if they did go to Kashyyyk, there wouldn't, I think, really be very many Wookiees left to help them out.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So when it comes to the Ewoks, I do think that some people would find. I think it has a 50-50 split with audiences. Either they'll find them adorable or they'll be annoyed as hell by them. I'm kind of somewhere in between, really, because I do like the babies because they do look really cute.
We get this conversation between Luke and Leia after they're welcomed into the Ewok tribe, and Luke reveals to Leia that they're brother and sister. He decides to surrender himself to Vader so that he can hopefully find a way to reach the good side within him and reawaken Anakin Skywalker and turn him back to the light.
Yeah, and the dialogue between this confrontation between Luke and Vader is just brilliant, and he's just trying to bring his father back to the light, even though Vader thinks it's too late for him. Even though after Luke is taken away by the stormtroopers, there's this one shot that, there's this quiet moment with Vader just like, it's just a really powerful moment that really lets it sink in. It's almost like he's like thinking, could he be right that there is good in me? Everything in the third act is just brilliant, going back and forth between Luke, Vader, and the Emperor in the throne room and the Death Star, with Han and Leia trying to destroy the shield generator, and Lando leading the Rebel fleet to destroy the Death Star, and everything just fires on all cylinders with the Emperor trying to entice Luke to embrace the dark side by like having him witness the Rebel fleet just being thrashed by the Imperial fleet. And of course we get this great moment with Admiral Akbar.
It's a trap!
Correctamundo, Admiral Akbar. It is a trap.
During the battle on Endor, we get this great moment between Han and Leia. After she's briefly wounded by a stormtrooper. There's two stormtroopers behind Han, and there's this brief moment where Leia hides her blaster, and Han notices that, and he says, "I love you," and Leia's like, "I know." I'm just like, that's just great.
Yeah, I personally think it's like an interesting callback to that same line that they used in reverse order for Empire. I mean, it's just, it really comes full circle, I think.
It definitely does. And back to the throne room where the Emperor is just continuing to antagonize Luke to embrace the dark side and just like taunting him and taunting him. And there's this great moment where Luke is about to like strike down the Emperor, and Vader blocks it, and they clash blades. There's this really terrifying shot of just the Emperor just cackling in laughter, and you're just like, this is what he wants. It just shows that this man is nothing but pure evil. I know a lot of people love the lightsaber duel between Luke and Vader at the end of Empire Strikes Back, and I'm definitely like one of those fans. I would say the rematch between them and Return of the Jedi probably gets it for a run for its money.
Yeah, I mean, I also think that their first duel in Empire is like one of the best highlights of the film, and one of like the most iconic duels, even with the big revelation that Vader's his father. But I really do think that it's a lot more interesting in Return of the Jedi for a number of reasons, but one of them mainly being that Luke is more experienced this time. He knows how Vader fights and what he really wants him to do. So basically, it's a lot more of a fair fight this time, and I really think that that adds for something here.
Yeah, and there's another powerful moment during this fight where we see this shot of Luke. I mean, half of his face is covered in light and one covered in darkness. I mean, it's kind of like having this symbolic struggling between the light side and the dark side, with Vader mentioning Leia and thinking about turning her to the dark side.
That was pretty much the last straw for Luke. After that, he didn't care like how he won or what happened. He just wanted to like go all out on Vader, and even eventually managed to cut his hand off.
Yeah, and the Emperor just can't help but laugh at this, and telling him, and he tells Luke to kill his own father and take his place at his side. And there's this great moment where Luke looks at his robotic hand, and he notices Vader himself has a robotic hand, and he's realizing that he's going down the same dark path as his father. Like Yoda said to Luke earlier, once you stumble down the dark path, forever will dominate your destiny. And he just like lets go of his lightsaber and throwing it away, just defying the Emperor, like, I'll never turn to the dark side. You failed, Your Highness. I am a Jedi like my father before me.
Yeah, I mean, that to me was both very noble and possibly very stupid of Luke to do, mostly because his lightsaber could have protected him later, but I guess, just like us, we didn't really know what the Emperor was really capable of.
Yeah, because we've seen, like, people, like, moving stuff with their minds or choking people, I mean, just by the, just like a sleight of their hand, mind tricks, and having the Emperor shoot lightning out of his fucking fingers was definitely something. And while the Emperor is shocking Luke with his force lightning, this is definitely the most powerful moment in the entire film, where Vader is looking back and forth between the Emperor and Luke, deciding whether or not he should turn against the Emperor or not. And just by these shots alone of, like, we can just, like, even though we can't see his face, I mean, we can tell, I mean, there's this very big, like, emotional conflict within Vader. I mean, not wanting to see his son continue to suffer. Mm. And it's at that moment where he turns against the Emperor, just throws him down that shaft, completing that original prophecy that Anakin Skywalker would be the one to destroy the Sith and bring balance to the Force.
Yeah, and I personally whether it's the despecialized version or the specialized one, I think that's still one of the most powerful and iconic moments in cinematic history. There's like a lot of emotion that goes into all this, and it's just unbelievable the way that Vader's able to redeem himself. And a lot of it also makes sense too, because he often thought that he was beyond redemption because he went down the path of the dark side.
But his son proved him wrong.
Yes, because he briefly went down that same path himself, but was able to come back from that. And that, I think, sparked something within him that allowed him to rethink his position and reawaken Anakin Skywalker inside the form of Darth Vader enough to protect his son in his last moments.
Yeah, and there's like this really sad moment where with Anakin dying, where he asks Luke to take off his mask, and so he can see Luke with his own eyes, not as Darth Vader, but as Anakin Skywalker, his father. It's really heartbreaking.
Yeah, it is, but it also really shows his
It's very satisfying to see Lando destroy the Death Star with the Falcon, even though he promised Han that he wouldn't get a scratch on the Falcon. Is so satisfying.
Yeah, and I'll admit that we probably all kind of predicted that he wouldn't be able to keep that promise, but given the circumstances, one, I'd say it was justified, and two, I think he's lucky that all he did was lose the antenna.
Yeah.
So, essentially.
There's this brief moment where Luke burns Darth Vader's armor, and he's the only one in attendance. If you realize that's he's the only one there. I mean, nobody else. Just him honoring his father by giving him the proper Jedi funeral.
Which is also, I think, quite appropriate because not only is it personal for him because Anakin was his father, but also because he's the last of the Jedi. So it's only fitting that the last of the Jedi be present for a Jedi funeral of one of their own.
Yeah. And it's definitely one of the most satisfying endings in cinematic history, having our heroes celebrate, and Luke having a brief look at the ghosts of Obi-Wan, Yoda, and Anakin, and just it could not have ended better than this. I mean, it was definitely a satisfying way to end the original trilogy. Whether if you're a Star Wars fan or not, I mean, you're pretty much bound to pretty much love Return of the Jedi regardless, because I certainly do. Even though it's my least favorite of the Star Wars trilogy, I mean, it has its problems, but it never stopped me from loving Return of the Jedi. So I'm going to give Return of the Jedi an A. So what did you think of Return of the Jedi? Let me know in the comments below. And I'm definitely looking forward to continuing this year's 80s May, even though last year I only did Empire Strikes Back. So I'm going to make up for that. And this is definitely going to be exciting because next time we're collaborating together, we'll be talking about Back to the Future Part 2, and that's definitely going to be very exciting. So
Yeah.
I want to give a big thank you to Cameron for collaborating with me on this. And guys, thank you so much as always for watching. Looking forward to doing more videos really soon. And if you want my thoughts on old or new films, of course, you know where to find me. And may the Force be with you.